Yesterday we discussed the idea that the holiday of Pesach was essentially established and corresponds to Avraham. The brother of the Torah says this, Rabbi Yechiel in Siman Tov Yud Zayin, and the past 2 days we offered elaborate explanations as to why this is so. One reason was kindness. Avraham represents kindness. He's the pillar and the root of kindness. And so too, there was a tremendous amount of kindness that was expressed from one person to another. When they were in Egypt, they encouraged each other with words, etc. And due to that, we merited that Hashem showed us kindness and redeemed us and our ancestors thousands of years ago in Egypt. The other approach that we learned is Avraham represents love to Hashem. How so? Because he sacrificed his child and his own life. He didn't worship the idols of his father Terach, and because of that was thrown in a fiery furnace in Ur Kasdim. He risked his life to stand up for what's right. This concept was consequently implanted into the DNA and the roots of every single descendant that Avram had, that they are able to easily give up their life to make a Kiddush Hashem. And we see, as Rabbi Chaim and Volozhin said, that even Jews who have zero affiliation whatsoever, we see, especially in the Holocaust and in many other times throughout our history, were willing to give up their life for Kiddush Hashem. This is what the Jews did in Egypt. They were able to give up their life, so to say, by performing two mitzvos that they merited. Number one is the Milah, and number two is the Korban Pesach. Both have to do with blood. Both represent a self-sacrifice, being moser nefesh, and risking their life, so to say, because Milah is very painful. It's almost as if the person is giving their life up, painting themselves. And the Korban Pesach, they risk their lives by having to kill the Egyptian gods in front of them, because the psukim discuss how the Egyptians were going to stone them, and they believed in Hashem. So therefore, because they risked themselves and they loved Hashem in that way, they expressed their love through risking their lives, so to say, and being moser nefesh and making a kiddush Hashem. Therefore, midah keneged midah, measure for measure, Hashem loved us as well, and He redeemed us as well. A third approach to this, that's all chazar, that's all recap. A third approach we're going to try to discuss today is how Avraham represents Emunah. Emunah in a nutshell, and obviously this takes months to properly learn about, if not years or entire lifetime to work out. But a person should certainly learn l'chayvus halavavos shar bitachon. There's no question. Maybe one day I'm gonna give shirim on them. I mean, I should. They're very important. They don't need my endorsement. The Chassam Sofer would teach his talmidim from this. His students from the chayvus halavavos. The many other great rabbis as well. Learned from this, yeah, Victor Miller, but I mean, there are a lot of other great rabbis who studied this work. Okay, now the idea is that Emunah means that we have to believe in Hashem, and everything that Hashem does is for the good. We also have to believe that Hashem created the world and runs the show. He runs everything in every single moment of our life, every single blade of grass, every single ant, etc. Now, let's take upon this idea and apply it over here. What does that have to do with Avram? What does that have to do with what happened in Mitzrayim in Egypt? The Ramban discusses at the end of the Parshas Bo as well. Now, Rabbi Karelinstien continues over here in his Kuntras B'Inyoni Chodesh Nisan V'Chag Pesach in Siman Zayin, and this is going to be Os Hey Vav and Zayin we're going to tackle today. And he starts off like this: Avram is the Yesod, is the foundation of belief in this world. There's a whole discussion about this in and of itself, but many hold that Avram was only at the young age of 3 years old when he recognized the creator of the world, when he recognized Hashem. And he went out and he was mefarsim, he publicized this emunah to the world. He publicized this belief to the entire world. As the Medrash Rabbah says in Parsha Slech, as well as in the Gemara in Sota and Yudam Beis. The Sefer Birchas Peretz al Torah at the end, he has like allusions, ramazim, and everything. And he says that Avraham, if you take the letters of the words Avram, Aleph, Beis, Resh, and Mem, it spells Re'u. It stands for the following words: Re'u, Mi, Bara, Elu. Re'u, Resh, that's the Resh in Avram. Mi is the Mem. Beis is the Bara. And then Elu is the Aleph. Look at who created this. In other words, Avraham is the foundation of belief and recognizing Hashem. The Maharal in the Gvuras Hashem, Maharal Meprag in Perek Zayin, says that through the Emunah, through belief in Hashem, that he was very strong, and Avraham merited being the Shirish and the Yesod of Klal Yisrael. He merited being the root and the foundation of all the Jews, and he's called the Sur, he's called the Rock. This teaches us that what? On the strength of this foundation that he had. Meaning a rock, like a foundation, it holds everything else up. That was Avram over here. And he was strong when it came to Emunah. And because of this, he merited being the Evan Pina, which is like the cornerstone. Measured being the cornerstone and the foundation of everything, that everything was built on. We also find that the holiday of Pesach is the foundation of Emunah and belief in Hashem, because the main belief is built on remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the main belief. Main belief in Hashem is based on and comes back to believing in the Exodus and Yetzias Mitzrayim, like the Ramban writes at the end of Parshas Bo. The Orchos Chaim, written by the Rosh, in Oscha Vav writes, Mi she'ena ma'amin asher hotzathicha me'eretz Mitzrayim af ba'anochi ena ma'amin. Someone who doesn't believe in the fact that Hashem took us out of Egypt, doesn't believe in that the first commandment, Ankhi Hashem Elokich, I am Hashem, your God.
Together, yeah.
What?
Fight together.
Start together, that's right. That's exactly what you're saying. So that is the idea over here. That is the benefit that we have on top of all the other nations. This is the foundation of the entire Torah. The Ibn Ezra explains on the pasuk that I am Hashem, your God, Ankhi Hashem Elokich, asher hotzathicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out of Mitzrayim. He asks a question. Why doesn't it say, I am Hashem, your God, asher baraty shamim וארץ, that created the world? Why does it say, I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of Egypt? You ever think about that? It's an obvious question on the first commandment if you think about it. So according to this idea that the Rosh is teaching us, the obvious is glaringly apparent and easy to understand. Because the foundation of Emunah, belief in Hashem, is through remembering the Exodus. It's through remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. What is the sinor? What is the pipe to get to this belief? It's built on the foundation of the creation of the world. Hasinor lehischazkos be'emunah al yesoid habriya hu gamkin derech chizuk hamun b'Yetzias Mitzrayim. This pipe to strengthen ourselves with the belief in the creation of the world is only accomplished through having belief and realizing what happened and how we were redeemed by Hashem in Egypt. Rabbi Karelinstien would consistently teach this to other people, this idea about the redemption from Mitzrayim that Hashem performed for us, because it is the foundation for belief in Hashem, and believing in Hashem is the foundation for everything else. As we discussed in the past, Sadik b'manasu yichya, that the Chavaka came along, Gemara, then the Makos, and says that all of the mitzvos really could be encompassed, based on the Marsha's explanation over there, into one mitzvah, Emunah, believing in Hashem. If you have belief in Hashem, then you have everything. That's the idea over here. So therefore, Pesach, it corresponds to Avram. Avram is the foundation of belief in Hashem, which is also the holiday that we strengthen ourselves in believing in the Exodus. And we eat the matzah. What is the matzah? Meichla dimnehimnusa. It is the food of Emunah, of belief. It's the foundation of belief. That is the idea. What is the explanation of Siras Omer? Why is the day called Shabbos, Marcha Shabbos? Why doesn't it say Marcha Pesach? It's referred to, when it comes to Siras Omer, the Torah says you should start counting Siras Omer Marcha Shabbos, after Shabbos. Why doesn't it say after Pesach, the first day of Pesach? Based on what we said, what is Shabbos? Shabbos is the foundation of belief in the creation of the world. We say Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, lo yisi le'olam, kisheches yamim asa Hashem es hashemayim v'yezoret u'bayoyim hashvi'i Shabbos vayinavot. What's that pasuk saying? Very simple. It's a sign between Hashem and the Jews. sign forever that Hashem created the world in 6 days, the heavens and the earth, and then he rested on the seventh day. Correct? Now, if a person doesn't have belief in Yetzias Mitzrayim, in this Exodus, then he will not have belief in the creation of the world at all. Like the Rosh writes, and we just learned above. Therefore, that's why this Yontif, the Yontif of Pesach, the holiday of Pesach, is called Shabbos. It alludes to us that what? That even when it comes to believing in Shabbos, meaning the essence of what Shabbos is about, believing in the creation of the world and how Hashem created the world, that is also dependent upon our belief in what? In the Exodus, that Hashem took us out. The same exact idea. That's why in Kiddush of Shabbos, what do we say? Zeicher liyetzias Mitzrayim. What does that mean? We are remembering Mitzrayim. We're remembering Egypt, the Exodus. Why? Because the belief that we have on Shabbos for the creation of the world is dependent upon the belief of Yetzias Mitzrayim. By the way, these ideas, they don't just apply to Pesach. This applies every single Shabbos. You internalize these ideas. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of information at once. Tremendous amount. And it's hard if you just hear it once to remember it. But you write this down. First of all, you should know I'm typing this up and I put this all in the description to the video, all of the notes. I don't put in every single last detail, but these ideas, you review them, you internalize them, you have it the rest of your life. Every single time now you say these words during Kiddush, you understand properly and a deeper idea of what's going on. This is incredibly relevant information over here. So Pesach is a time to prepare for Shavuos also. Why? Because the foundation of belief happens through Pesach. And the Ramban writes at the end of Parshios, both finally he quotes what the Ramban says, that a person doesn't have a portion in the Torah of Moshe until he believes everything. And until he believes that everything is a nes. Everything is miraculous in this world. Our ability to breathe, our ability to talk. Person has to realize that everything is essentially miraculous. Not essentially, everything is miraculous. There's no such thing as teva. Some people you hear, they say Mother Nature. It's not Mother Nature. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Hashem. Everything happens whether communally or individually. It's all decreed upon. It's all Hashem running the show. And therefore, the way to prepare to receive the Torah, which is Zman Matan Torah, Shavuos is the time when we receive the Torah, is through strengthening ourselves on Pesach and having the belief that everything is Hashem and that Hashem took us out of Egypt. The Minchas Chinuch and Mitzvah Chaf Aleph and the commentary Ma'ase Nisim, written by the Nesivos HaMishpat in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, he has a question. What's the difference of Zechirus Yetzias Mitzrayim, of remembering the Exodus on the first night of Pesach more than the rest of the year? Every single night of the year we have a mitzvah. Yemei Chayecha refers to the day. Kol Yemei Chayecha refers to the night. We have a mitzvah every single day and night to remember the Exodus. In other words, this mitzvah that we're talking about doesn't just apply by Pesach. Remember, one of the guys, I started asking him questions on the Haggadah. All these questions. He says, I don't know. We only have it twice a year. It's the wrong answer. The Haggadah applies every single day. That's the whole message. The Mahos. This is Yetzias Mitzrayim business. This is an obligation midoraisa from the Torah to remember what happened in Egypt every single day and every single night of our life. This is an obligation from the Torah. Just think about that for a minute. How applicable that is. Remember when I spoke to the author of the Sefer Yarech L'Moadim, who transcribed and wrote Rabbi Yerucham Oshan's Torah into this huge set, probably 7,000 pages total on all of the Yom Tovim. He said, even when it's not the Yom Tov, even when it's not right, I told him I didn't finish the Chanukah yet because I didn't get a chance. I'm finishing it now, even though it's after Chanukah. He said, this stuff ain't just Chanukah. This Torah isn't just for Yom Tov, and this applies the whole year. And how right is he? How correct is that statement? So the question is, why then are we obligated to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, specifically now by the Pesach? What's the difference of the obligation? So there are many different answers to this. We discussed in the past the brisker of, it's not just a zechira ba'alma, it's a hishtalshalus ha'ma'iros. The rest of the year we just remember it, we say a quick statement and then we move on. This is a sipur, you got to talk about it. The back and forth, the whole story, the sequence of events. It's also question answer format. There's many different reasons. You got to go into it more depth. There's many answers to this question. One explanation is the rest of the year we have to just mention, oh, by the way, Hashem took our ancestors out of Egypt. However, on the night of the 15th of Nisan, on the Seder night, the obligation is to additionally point out that it was through miracles that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, took us out of Egypt. We can't just mention, oh, Hashem took us out. No. It's through the miracles, and there's a large elaboration on that. Let's just add one last point to this idea over here. The foundation for this difference is because that this is totally different than the rest of the year, right? Right. Pesach, right, as we said, is the pillar of Emunah, of belief, who is Avram, corresponds to Avram. He's the pillar of belief. And discussing the story of the Exodus on this night, the purpose is to strengthen belief in Hashem, in us, and that He's ability to do everything. Therefore, specifically at this night, we need to talk about the miracles that occurred, the wondrous acts that Hashem performed for our ancestors, which occurred at that time. Because that will strengthen within us. When we discuss it, that will cause us to get stronger in our belief in Hashem as well. And we see how Hashem runs the show and rules over everything and all the strengths in the world. The Sefer Chai Olam, written by the Stiepler, Chelek Aleph, Perek Tezvav, discusses how every single makkah, every single plague had a specific purpose to it. It was to teach us how Hashem runs the entire world and has a rulership and authority over everything in this world. And Hashem has all the strengths. And Ein Od Mlvado, there's nothing else besides for Hashem. This is also the reason for Vayigadat Lebincha. This is one explanation behind why we're obligated to teach our children on the night of the Seder. As it says in Parshas Bo Laman, "Tesaper ba'ozni bincho bein binches asher hisalalti b'Mitzrayim." Speak about what I did, speak about what Hashem did. Hashem saying in Egypt, "Yadatem ki ani Hashem." When you talk about it, you'll know that I'm Hashem. In other words, through talking about the wondrous acts and the plagues that Hashem performed, then you'll know who I am. You'll start realizing it.
Why would something in Milam and Teva, why would that, strengthen Emunah as opposed to like a more hashkacha pratis things or more, things like, I'm saying, why would something that's the Milam and Teva, why would that increase Emunah?
So the idea is because when it's such wondrous acts and amazing miraculous events that occurred in history, that will be like, wow, look at all this. And especially when you learn the Mefarshim, you learn the Midrashim, you learn it more in deep, you see how every single specific detail was divinely orchestrated and catered to even beautify the nace, beautify these miracles. That's an amazing act. The average person isn't going to wake up in the morning or even think about once during the day, wow, how miraculous is it, the millions of things that need to happen in my body to make sure that it works properly. We don't think about that. But when you get thrown a supernatural crazy nace, people start talking, people start thinking, you start recognizing the godless of Hashem, the greatness of Hashem. However, the mitzvah of zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim, of remembering the Exodus throughout the entire year, that's part of the mitzvah of Shema, right? It was enacted that we remember daily and every single night the Exodus while we recite Shema. All right? It says in Brachos on Yud Beis Amud Beis this idea. And it talks about also how the foundation for the mitzvah of Shema is Kabbalah's all, accepting upon ourselves the yoke. The first two parshios, the first two parshas of Shema, V'ahavta and V'haya, is discusses Ol Malchut Shamayim, accepting upon ourselves the yoke of the heavenly kingdom. And then the second paragraph is Ol Mitzvos, the yoke of Torah. This discusses why in the Gemara the Shema is in this order. It discusses first we want to accept upon ourselves Ol Malchut Shamayim, and then Ol Mitzvos. First the yoke of heaven, and then the mitzvos. It's in Brachos Yud Gimel Manav. So what's the connection between remembering Egypt and Shema? What's the connection? Why is it part of this mitzvah? What's the idea over here? So we have to say the third parsha of Shema, right? That's where we mention, you see, where do we mention it? Ani Hashem Elokicha Ma'asher Hosisi Eschem Eretz Hashem Yosochem Elokim Ani Shulchem. We mention over there, I'm Hashem your God who took you out of Mitzrayim. That's where we mention it, right? So what's the why over there? What's the idea? So the idea over here is like this: that the third parsha, right, which we mention, the Exodus, that is said as the reason, and that's what obligates the first two parshas to be said. Meaning like this: the reason why we're obligated to accept upon ourselves the Ol Malchut Shamayim, the yoke of the heavenly kingdom, meaning Hashem, and the yoke of mitzvahs, is because we were slaves in Egypt. We were subservient. It was just due to Hashem's mercy that He had upon us that He redeemed us. He took us out from the Avdus L'Cheres, from the slavery to the freedom. However, the Tachlis HaYetziyah, what was the purpose of the Exodus? As it discusses in Shemos Gimel Yud Beis, "V'hotzaeticha Mitzrayim ta'avdun es Elokim al har hazeh," to serve Hashem. So therefore, the idea is that what? That we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim in the third paragraph, right? And that's what obligates us in the first two. Because we recognize what Hashem did for us, and how Hashem took us out from rags to riches, so to say. And therefore, because of that, that's why now we have to serve Him. That was all purpose why we were taken out. We went from being an Eved. I just want to elaborate on this in a minute for what he doesn't write about. We went from being an Eved to Paro to an Eved Hashem. I don't know if we discussed here, but in life, everyone is an Eved to something. Everyone is a slave to someone, has some sort of boss, someone who needs to talk up to. An Eved, a slave to some sort of passion, desire, lust, addiction to something. The best type of Eved a person could be is an Eved Hashem. We discussed this on the Yeshua, actually, on what it means to be an Eved Hashem, to be God's servant. So we might as well be an Eved Hashem, and we know Ein lecha bein chayrin el misha isik b'Torah. It says in the 6th paragraph, Avos, the only person who learns Torah is free, because he won't need to do anything else. He's not a slave to any of his desires, any of his passions. That's the idea over here. Anyways, continuing the piece over here. This is the idea. Hashem took us out to serve Him. The Chinuch writes in mitzvah Shin Vav, that's the mitzvah of Shira Omer, by the way. Why are we taken out of Mitzrayim? In order that we would receive and accept the Torah on Mount Sinai and on Har Sinai and fulfill it. Like Hashem said, I'm going to take you out so that you serve me. In other words, that you're going to accept the Torah. Shehu ha'ikr ubishvil sen negalim. This is the main dish, so to say, main priority, and this is why you were redeemed. This is the tachlis. This is the climax. This is what it's all about. Shekol ikaran shel Yisrael einu ela haTorah. The whole point of Klal Yisrael is for the Torah, and that's why the whole world was created. That's the idea over here. So we were taken out to be free on the condition that we will accept the Torah and fulfill the mitzvos, and therefore we are compelled to do so. We must do so. We're obligated to do so, because that's why we were taken out. And this is the foundation of remembering the Exodus, specifically in Shema. So it comes out now that the main idea of mentioning the Exodus is so that we remember this, and that we remember that we went from slavery to freedom. And when we remember that, that will already obligate us to accept upon ourselves Ol Malchut Shamayim and all mitzvos, the yoke of the heavenly kingdom of Hashem and all the mitzvos. And therefore, that's why we don't need to discuss every other day of the year, all of the miracles that happened when we left. It's just enough to zeicher, to commemorate it, to remember it. And this is the root of the difference between the seder and the rest of the year. The rest of the year is enough just to remember. The seder, you have to do something.
Sipur and Zeicher. Yes, Sipur and Zeicher.
What?
Sipur and difference between Sipur and
Sipur and the Zechira, correct. Now,
Is it-
let's just tie in one point, which the truth is has to do with what we learned about yesterday. The Yerushalmi Masechah Shabbos and Perek Tezvav Halacha Gimel says, "Lo nitnu Shabbos v'yamim tovim liYisrael ela kedei sheyasku b'hem b'Torah." Shabbos and Yontif was only given to the Jews so that we could learn Torah. People a lot of time during the week they make excuses for not learning. To be honest, where I learn at night, the Beis Medrash is more empty on Sunday night than any other night of the week. It's all excuses. Sunday night, why is the Beis Medrash empty? No one's working the whole day. Come and learn. What's the difference? People have excuses, during the week. I can't learn, I'm working. What's your excuse on Shabbos? There is no excuse. Stay in the Beis Medrash. The Shabbosim now they're getting longer. Why shouldn't a person sit there 2-3 hours on a Shabbos afternoon before Mincha? That's what the Yerushalmi says. Shabbos is only given to learn Torah. Taisus in Chagiga and Yud Ches Amud Aleph and Dibar Maskul Choyla quotes the Yerushalmi in Malikot and Perek Beis Halacha Gimel that says, why is it usher to work on Chol HaMoed? Technically speaking, you're not allowed to work unless it's davar avid, well-known leniency. If it's going to be a financial loss, you're getting paid an hourly salary, and it will be or you're going to lose money as a business fund. So then, if you're going to lose money, so you could work. You're going to lose business by not opening up your shop, right? The answer is, it says the Yerushalmi Kadeshu Yagim b'Torah. So you'll learn Torah. Shagas Ari and Siman Samach Tes says there's a specific obligation to learn Torah on every Jewish holiday, on every Yontif. Part of the halachas is Simchas Yontif. This is part of the halachas of rejoicing on Yontif. This is what brings the happiness. This is besides for the daily obligation to learn every single day. Which, by the way, we're about to start in Yeshua Perek Aleph Pasuk Ches v'Hagisa B'Yom V'Layla. I got 30 pages typed up just on that one pasuk, so I don't know exactly how I'm going to give that over, but it's going to have to be split up. Let's make one shiur for 7 hours straight. I don't know if anyone wants to watch that one, but it'll probably take more than 4 or 5 hours. But anyways, the point is what? We see it's special to learn on Yontif. So what's the idea with Pesach? Especially Pesach is a special time to learn, even more than every other Yontif. It's a very special time to learn Torah. Why? Because this holiday has to do with Avraham. Avraham is Emunah, like we just said, belief in Hashem, correct?
Yeah.
When a person's amel b'Torah, when a person learns Torah and he toils and he works very, very hard to understand it, that is the yesod of chizak Emunah. That's what leads to strengthening our belief. This, he says, he discusses this point more on the Yamim Noraim. You'll have to wait for the elaboration over there on pages Sadi Tes and Kuf. Pesach is the time that has to do with Avram. It's also Avas Hashem, as we discussed yesterday. Love, serving Hashem out of love. The Sifri writes in the beginning of Parshas V'eschan and Osam Megim on the pasuk, "Ve'ahavtes Hashem Elokecha." You shall love Hashem your God. And you should place it on your heart. Since it says you should love Hashem, I don't know. How does that mean to love Hashem? The answer is place it on your heart. What does that mean? When it's on your heart, aka when you're learning Torah, when it's on your heart, through that, then you love Hashem. It also says in the Sefer mitzvos by the Rambam in mitzvos Asay Ayin Gimel that the way to love Hashem is through learning Torah b'iyun, is through learning Torah in depth. That's the way to love Hashem, like what we do over here in the morning. Most people don't have the patience for it. It requires diligence, and at many times it can be tedious. but this is the way to properly learn and have Avas Hashem, love for Hashem. And this is why specifically on Pesach, we need to be involved with this, because Pesach, as we discussed, is a time of Ava, serving Hashem out of love. That's the idea over here. That's a deeper idea behind this. At this time, we also need Shmira Ma'ula, an extra protection and guarding, not to sin. This is a time not to sin. The Pele Yoyetz writes in Ospei, B'Shem Mekubalim, you're not allowed to have chametz on Pesach. But any sort of sin, you're not allowed to have. Stay away from it. That could blemish a person on Pesach more than that sin could blemish a person during the rest of the year. And a person needs to be careful. We see that Pesach is a time not to sin. That's what's represented by the chametz, the yetzer hara, the evil inclination. The chametz represents the evil inclination. How do we not sin? Through limud haTorah, Gigia b'Torah, amelus b'Torah, through learning more Torah and trying hard to work at it. What's the proof to this? It's an explicit Gemara in Sota Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. That the Torah is Magina Bein Be'idna Da'asik Bei Bein Be'idna D'Lo Yasik Bei. The Torah protects Maginu Matzla and saves the person whether he's learning or not. If he learns Torah, it will protect him. Same thing with all the wars going on. It protects from everything, the Torah. Marsha explains that it also protects a person from sinning. It's like a mitzvah, Gereris mitzvah, fourth parak Avos, that one mitzvah causes and leads to another mitzvah. Similarly, the Gemara in Kedushin says, on Daf Lamed Amud Beis, as well as the Gemara in Baba Basra, on Tezayin Amud Aleph, Baraty Yitzhahara, Baraty Torah Taflin. Hashem says, I created the Yitzhahara, and I created the Torah as the antidote, the spice to fix this. The medicine, the cure, so to say. There's only one way to fight off the evil inclination. That's Torah. If you're going to follow in my ways, Rashi writes, he quotes in the beginning of parsha B'chukosa, the Torah's Kohanim, you should toil in Torah. Why is the Torah referred to as a chok? The Sam Derech goes into it many. He explained. One explanation is because we don't understand the mechanics. How does it work that when we learn Torah, it fights off our evil inclinations? It breaks it out, but it just works. That's what we know. That's what the Gemara over here is teaching us. So this isn't a contradiction to Simchas Yom Tov, to rejoicing on Yom Tov. On the contrary, this will add to a person's happiness on Yom Tov. When a person sits down and learns with uninterrupted for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, that is true simcha. A person could eat all day. A person could eat all day, all the best food, all of this. That's not going to be simcha. Through limud haTorah, that's what will bring to true simcha. That's what will affect down here. A person can have the best food in the world, spend $300 on a nice meal, that food within 48 hours going straight to the toilet. It's not going to last. True simcha, inner, that lasts forever, that's through limud haTorah. That is simchas Yom Tov. Pekudi Hashem yesharim mesamchei leiv. It says explicitly in the pasuk that what? That following Hashem's ways, that leads to simcha. Like the Marsha writes in Psachim on Samaches, Kulo Hashem, it talks about that you do half for you, half for Hashem. Simchas limud haTorah mesameach alev. The learning brings joy to a person. Also other discuss this as well in the Gemara in Beya and Tezvav Amud Beis. Could be he's referring to the Neshama Yisera, the Shita Mekabetz is referring to extra Siyat Shema, heavenly assistance when it comes to learning. But anyways, this is the idea. This is Emunah. This is Avram. This is what Pesach represents. That we have to realize that Hashem is running the show. That's why it's Avram, because he found Hashem, and that's what we have to tap into more during the seder. And that's a common theme, by the way, when you start studying more in depth about the Haggadah, Emunah. It's all about believing in Hashem and that He runs the show. This is a major principle that we just discussed today. Don't underestimate the importance of it at all. Okay, everyone should have a wonderful day. Have a nice day. Yeah.